these verses this morning, these are verses that in many ways are a tremendous comfort to us, but they are only a tremendous comfort when we're actively living these things out. So we say, you know what, it's a great, great thought that if we will trust in God with all of our heart and we will remember what He has called us to do, that He blesses His people. The challenge is we actually have to do that, right? We have to truly trust God with all of our heart. We have to be a people who are living for Him, remembering what He's called us to do. And when you think about all of these things, what makes it particularly challenging is these are all areas where we have a bit of a problem at times, aren't they? I mean, think about it. What God is asking of us here doesn't always come easily. Think about remembering. I mean, how easy is it to remember? Well, depends on what it is, right? There's a lot of things we forget. A lot of things that you would think, how in the world, right? That person walks up and you think, I don't know who you are. I know I recognize you, but I have no idea what your name is. You think, how? Right? How do I not remember that? Well, it's gone. Remembering can be a challenge. Additionally, we also know that trusting can be a challenge, right? I mean, when I thought about these things originally, I thought, some of these things don't come naturally, but let's be honest. I mean, we do kind of come out as children, what? Trusting. Right? I've got Simon who's 2. I can throw him up. He always knows I'm going to catch him, and thus far he has been correct. I have caught him. But what happens as we get older? We start to think, I don't trust anybody enough to throw me up in the air or anything else, right? We say, we've been burned enough by this person or by that person, and all of a sudden trusting, that's not so easy anymore because I know what happens when they fail, when they're not trustworthy. And then additionally, submitting's always been a challenge. I mean, that's never an easy thing. Whether you're talking about specific family relationships, you're talking about in a work setting, right? It's not easy to allow someone else to make a decision or to allow them to lead. And yet here we're called again to submit. And so all of these things are challenging, and all of these things I think are really, really important in the whole process of doing what He's asked us to do. These words that He's given us here, they make me think of what Jesus says in the Sermon on the Mount in Matthew 6, when He talks about don't worry about certain things, but what? Seek first the kingdom of God. I mean, this is the same basic idea. Don't do things that are concerning to you and focused in on you, but remember who God is and what God has said, and you focus on Him and let Him handle the rest. It's the same kind of idea presented here in these verses of Proverbs chapter 3, verses 1 through 8. Now, with all of that being said, what I'd like to do this morning, in the time that we have left, is I'd like to ask 3 questions of the things that we've looked at, because I think it's important to consider what does this practically look like if I'm going to do these things. And so the first question is, how do we make sure that we remember? Now, there are all kinds of things, right? All kinds of tools and of tricks, right, that we use. And I would guess if we went through this morning and we all shared all of the little things that we do to remember things, we hear some pretty interesting things, right? I use my phone a lot. I'll ask my phone to remind me at a certain time. And you may have noticed last night I sent the handout for today's lesson out at like 9 o'clock. That's because I forgot. Checked the phone. I told it to remind me at 8:30, and I remembered at that point, right? I didn't have to use the phone then. I remembered. But you probably have heard someone else, right? They will meet someone, and you'll hear them say their name like 6 times in the conversation, and you're like, this is getting uncomfortable. But why? Because it's to remember, right? You don't forget their name when you've said it over and over and over again. So I want to ask, as we think about the things of God, how do we make sure to remember?